Namaste nerds, this is Navanad, the Budget Pup Stomper. I'm glad you've decided to join me again after the last video I put out. I know that went a little bit dark, sorry about that. It just gets a little bit ugly in here sometimes, and here being my mind. So today we're not going to be talking about anything ugly. Well, there was one thing ugly. The actual commander that we have to use in order to get the deck down to the allotted price. So I'm going to go ahead and switch this back. I literally just can't stand looking at it. But let's go ahead and switch the printing back so I can show you the actual price. Okay, that's ugly. But look at that, $99.12 because we are professionals. Yeah, so this is a deck called $100 Rograkh-Thrasios semi-blue. This is budget blue. I think it's kind of necessary to tell you just a little bit of a backstory about this deck before I get into the kind of meat of it. So the backstory is in cEdh. This is a deck that was kind of stolen from cEdh in a pretty specific time and place. There was a time, journey with me back in time, would you? Come with me. Not dark, not scary, not getting crazy this time. There was a time in cEdh proper, not that long ago, that we lovingly refer to as Midrnage Hell. If you've heard me talk about cEdh strategy and deck building philosophy, you may have heard me refer to things as bottlenecks, or things like, you may have heard me refer to bottlenecks. The two bottlenecks are cards and mana. For example, if you don't have any mana, it doesn't do you a bunch of good to draw a bunch of cards because you can't cast the cards. So you have a bottleneck. You're bottlenecked on mana. Now, if you're bottlenecked on cards, then it doesn't matter how much mana you have. You don't have anything to do with it, right? So this is a deck where the idea came from a specific place in time where the idea of bottlenecks sort of vanished out of the cEdh world. What do I mean? Well, we had this thing that happened, this page in our history where Dockside was banned, and we got all these fast mana cards banned. You remember the time. And so the best thing used to be to go really fast, or a lot of people thought the best thing was to go really fast, or at least one of the best things you could do is just go really fast. But then people thought, well, we really can't go super fast anymore, so maybe now the best thing to do is to cast a Rhystic Study, and then clone the Rhystic Study, and then steal your buddy's Rhystic Study, and then copy that Rhystic Study, and then commandeer the guy that cast his recent Rhystic Study. You get the idea. It was draw engines and literally cloning draw engines. So if in cEdh we remove the bottleneck of cards, then the only bottleneck left is mana. But there's also Smothering Tithes and Lothos and bundles of free interaction. A lot of it is not activated, but a lot of it is turned on by Rograkh. So this deck came into the cEdh meta by way of Japan. It took the detour from Japan, so we had these long games, the draw meta, where tons of games and tournaments were going to draws. Nobody could finish a game. We had an 11-hour, one game, a finale, a finals that lasted literally 11 hours in this dark place in cEdh history called the draw meta. The draw meta, or what else would they call it? It was basically Midrnage Hell. So the idea was that they removed all of the bottlenecks. If you can follow this idea, the bottlenecks are removed because you've got three opponents, right? And if all of them have Rhystic Studies, plural, and Smothering Tithes and Lothos, then every time I do anything, I take a game action, my opponents make more mana and draw more cards. So anytime I would try to present a win, even though I had virtually infinite everything myself, it's not actually infinite. But when I'm trying to do some of my infinite combos, it's actually creating a situation where there's just no hope of getting through all of the Rhystic Studies and Mystic Remors that my opponents have. Just as an example, say I'm trying to win with Food Chain, and I'm trying to cast my commander, 100,000 times to win. Well, I'm not going to get the opportunity to do that, because even if I am able to start the combo, by the time I get to the third or fourth step, all of my opponents have drawn a bunch of cards, and most of their cards, well, a lot of their cards are free, and some of the other players, if they don't have tons of free interaction, they have very slim interaction, and, Lothos and, well, value engines on both sides. So yeah, you have card draw value engines. I've got a dog to deal with here, excuse me. Sorry. Yeah, so you have card draw value engines and mana engines, and when you have your own value engines, but every time you try to present a win, you have to get that win through 3 opponents, and each of them has their own value engines. It ended up in a situation where it was very difficult to actually make a win happen. So, in the Japanese meta, this Rograkh-Thrasios deck emerged, where it was trying to be a hard foil to that meta. That was a long-winded story, but I feel like you really do need to understand understand that to know where this deck came from and why it has my scorn. Because actually I did not think this was going to work. So the idea was, in the Japanese meta and cEdh proper, the people that were playing this list or versions of it were pulling all of their interaction, and they were playing all kinds of creatures, and specifically creatures that have not just ETBs, but cast triggers. And most of their spells are uncounterable. Anything above, like, so much mana, they'd make sure either had a cast trigger or was literally uncounterable. And so the idea was, I don't give a shit how many heuristic studies you have. You can draw all the cards you want. Eventually, somebody's getting Apex Devastator. Like, I never thought I'd see the day where Apex Devastator was an actual cEdh card. But look, man, like, if you have until turn 4 in cEdh, and these games were going, even in cEdh, turn 4, turn 5, turn 6, 3 hours, 4 hours, then you have time to get enough mana together to cast an Apex Devastator. And that's all you needed to do in these Japanese decks, or in the deck you're looking at now, is just find the mana to cast an Apex Devastator. Now, it doesn't have to be Apex Devastator, but that's an example. It could be a Malestrom Wanderer. It could be several Teamer Battle Criers. It could be, Resolve a Kodama and a Hullbreaker Horror, which, by the way, Hullbreaker Horror has flash, can't be countered. So this is the idea. The idea that my buddy had, Viz15, was that he was going to port that concept over into our little neck of the woods, $100 budget competitive, which I thought was kind of a silly idea because this deck was a response to a very specific thing. So how could this work in our games where we don't have that problem? So this isn't an answer. Well, it's an answer to a problem that we didn't have. However, turns out that we are all playing a ton of interaction, and we are all playing a bunch of counterspells, and we are still all kind of tuned to drop some kind of a value plan. Let me give you an example. Maybe you're playing Shurikai Genesis Engine, and your buddy's playing Urza, and your other guy's playing like my version of Teamer Pirates, where we're trying to, even better, Malcolm Kedis, where you're trying to like put a curiosity on your Malcolm, play your Kedis, and then every combat step you're drawing 3 cards and producing 3 treasures. So that same situation, while it's not actually infinite and bottleneckless, it still has similarities. In this deck, well, as skeptical as I was of it, so far on Untap, he's played this game, 6-7 times, and has lost 0 games with it. Now, to be fair, at least in the games I've played against him, I wasn't bringing the big dogs out. You know what I mean? Like, I was seeing that he wasn't playing his usual RAL or anything that I would consider like S tier or tier 1, or he was playing a slower deck, so maybe I would play like Calamax or, like a good, viable, serious threat of a deck. But I guess that's neither here nor there. So far, he's undefeated with this deck. And the only reason I want to bring up the fact that it hasn't went through necessarily like the absolute it hasn't beat that hasn't all been pods of nothing but like top tier decks, right? But there have been top tier decks in the mix for sure. So all that to say this, the deck works. It's been checked. Out of all the decks that I've sent you, that I've brought to you on my channel, this deck so far has the winningest profile out of any of them. So that's, take that as you will. Or I should say, make of that what you will. So now that you have like the backstory, and you know where he's coming from, the idea is he's playing creatures which are harder to counter. He's playing a bunch of things that have cast triggers. He's playing things that give other things cast triggers. He's playing spells that are literally uncounterable. He's cut all of the interaction unless the interaction can explicitly help him. This is the greediest, most parasitic deck on the planet, and it's getting wins like you would not believe. So this isn't going to be me explaining a combo to you. I mean, there's combos in the deck, but he's not just tutoring for A and B, because that would be too easy. We could just counter spell the tutor. But this deck isn't doing that. It's not giving you an obvious threat profile. Plus, if you wanted to play this deck in bracket 4 or like high power casual, I don't think your friends would be able to bitch about you beating them to death with Apex Devastators and Malestrom Wanderers, but the deck really will do that. In the 2 games I played against it today, he did not have a game where he took a 6th turn. I did not have a turn 4. I don't think in either of the games, but at least I know one for sure he won on turn 4. And the other one I think was also turn 4, if not turn 5. But it wasn't just, get Basalt, Monolith, get Kennen, put them together, find an outlet, win the game. It was, let's put a Teamer. This was a literal thing that happened in the game. He played a Teamer Battle Crier. It says, during your turn, spells you cast cost 1 less for each creature you control with power 4 or greater. He cast one of these. I had no idea what it was. At a glance, I read it and thought that it reduced creatures with power 4 or greater by 1. No. He had a big battlefield that he was assembling, and this deck can present a very scary battlefield very quickly. There's tons of mana dorks. There's tons of ramp. There's mana in the command zone in a way in the form of Rograkh, which really is what Roger is there for most of the time. You've got Relic of Legends, you've got Legends to tap, so even if you just have your 2 commanders out, Relic of Legends alone will tap for 3 mana. Not to mention then when you start piling other things on top of it. Deck goes crazy. So back to the story. Okay, back to story time. Thank you. Thank you for following me into our journey through the mind of, really there's 3 authors on this deck, but I think I take the least credit here. I had some say, I made some adjustments today, for instance, but mostly I think this is Viz's deck. Secondly, it's Egu's deck, but the 2 of them, this is really their brainchild. I just sort of co-signed it. I signed off on it. Maybe had a little bit of influence. So, back to the journey. Teamer Battle Crier is on the battlefield. He casts a clone. I don't really care about a clone, at least that's what I thought, but he cloned his Teamer Battle Crier. So now he had other things in play, big things, scary things, nasty and unspeakable things. I believe there was a Scholar of the Lost Trove. Yep, cEdh All-Star, Scholar of the Lost Troves in play. And the Teamer Battle Crier, and then another Teamer Battle Crier. So now all of his spells are free. Now everything's fucking free. And to cut to the end, that allowed him to spew a Genesis wave after he already did what I would call an interaction check and got me to bite on it. He cast a spell. He wouldn't tell me what he was getting with it. It was Eldritch Evolution. I told him that I had a counterspell, and I wanted him to tell me specifically what he was going to tutor for, or I was going to counterspell the Evo. He would not do that, and therefore I counterspelled the Evo, which he then immediately made me regret by doing all of these things that unfolded into a Genesis wave X equals 13. He vomited his deck onto the battlefield and presented a win by some silly nonsense. In fact, he had 2 separate ways to present a win. One of them was Deadeye Navigator, soul bonded with Peregrine Drake. I mean, this is a combo you can play, but like, it's not peak MTG, right? This isn't your go-to combo in a Rograkh-Thrasios deck, right? I mean, you would think you would play like an A plus B combo that costs, I don't know, not 10 mana. Yeah? Yeah, but not the case. Well, to be fair, it didn't cost anything. I don't know how much mana he actually had to spend on his Genesis Wave, but it wasn't that much. Yeah, so he presented infinite mana that way, and then he also had a Hullbreaker Horror in play with a Soul Ring, which and with the commander. So if you have Rograkh and you have Hullbreaker and you have a Soul Ring, then you have an infinite mana combo and an infinite mana outlet. So your infinite mana combo is you cast a Soul Ring, you tap it for 2 mana. Well, he cheated his Soul Ring into play with the story that I told. So he taps his Soul Ring for 2 mana, casts Rograkh, bounces the Soul Ring. Then you play the Soul Ring with one of your 2 floating mana, and you tap it for 2 mana, but when you play the Soul Ring, it bounces the Rograkh. And then the Rograkh bounces the Soul Ring, and the Soul Ring bounces. So you're using Hullbreak Horror and Soul Ring. That becomes an A plus B win in this deck. But again, the deck is not actually trying to assemble a combo. It's just trying to put a Starwinder in play with something that can attack you with haste that has 7 power and draw 7 cards and then kill you with whatever he's got. The deck is about putting a Kodama into play and actually having an 8 mana thing to cast when he casts his 8 mana thing. It snowballs out of control very quickly. It doesn't look like anything that should be fast, and it's not that fast. Like, for a competitive deck, even a $100 competitive deck, it's not like Ral fast. It's not even Selvala fast, but it's like turn 4, turn 5, and try to stop me if you can, but good luck, you can't. Because first of all, you don't know what to counterspell. Second, there really is no good answer to what to counterspell. Third, even if there was, you couldn't counterspell it. And whatever number I'm on, even if you could counterspell it, I would still get the cascade trigger from it. So that's the deck, right? I don't know if there's much more to say about it. I guess I could go through some of the main ideas of the deck. So we've got a bunch of these Wolf, Willowhaven, Utopia Sprawl, Shimmer, Wild Growth, Overgrowth, Fertile Ground that we're going to put on a land so that land taps for additional mana. And you might just pile those up. And then you can tap your Arbor Elf to untap it. Or you can use your Kiora Behemoth Beckoner to untap it. And then tap it for a bundle of mana that lets you cast a spell that has power 4 or greater. So you draw a card. So your Kiora becomes like a mana engine and a card draw engine. Even though Phyrexian Metamorph is rarely going to cost you even the 3 mana it normally costs, it is going to trigger the Kiora Behemoth Beckoner. So yeah, the infinite mana combos are going to be like put a bunch of, even putting 1 Wild Growth, one of these enchantments on any land can allow you to go infinite with Deadeye Navigator and Cloud of Fairies. So that's one way you can win. But again, you're not like just trying to assemble this. It's not the game plan. The game plan is to build up a massive, unstoppable battlefield of shit that just does more and more shit, that spirals out of control into a, it's a very good term, cascade, because it is just a cascade of value. You're going to put a Hullbreaker Horror in play. You're going to have 1 billion mana, and you're going to pop something like an Apex Devastator to your hand, recast it, get the cascade again. You're going to take advantage of your Peregrine Drake's ETBs by casting a Deadeye Navigator, soul bonding them, infinite mana, draw your deck with Thrasios. Draw the deck, play all of your creatures. What are you going to do with all those creatures? You're going to have to pass a turn, and maybe the next turbo deck in line takes a crack at you. Nope, just kidding. Maelstrom Wanderer says all of your creatures have haste. You can point all of those guys at the one person you were afraid that was actually going to win, or the one person that might be able to stop you from winning. So this deck sort of defies my normal ways of talking about a deck, because I usually talk about what the commanders do. And what does Rograkh do? Well, it just bees a creature. That's what it does. So you can use it to turn your, I don't know, your Survivor's Encampment type lands into City of Brasses that are 10 cents each. Tap for extra mana with your Relic of Legends. Use it as the combo piece with your Hullbreaker Horror and your Soul Ring. Tap a Springleaf Drum with it. It does some things, but mainly it's just a 0 mana thing. It's a 0 mana dude. It's material to cast when all of your things have Cascade. Then when you go infinite mana, which will happen, again, just as a matter of course, not through tutoring an A plus a B, just from occasionally activating Thrasios. This really isn't like a Thrasios Pasios style deck. We're not holding up interaction, and then if we don't have to use it, we can in-stop activate Thrasios. Mostly Thrasios is a body in the battlefield, which is going to tap for mana with Enduring Vitalities and all of the versions of Enduring Vitality. Relic of Legends and all of the versions of Relic of Legends, like your Springleaf Drums and so on. But really, it's a body, it's a value engine, it's an infinite mana outlet. It's kind of it's whatever you need. But the story of the deck is in these creatures that have enter the battlefield triggers and or cast triggers, right? Or sometimes it's not even the creature itself that like sometimes you'll have a Kodama in play and a Radagast, the brown, in play, and then every time you cast a thing, you get these triggers from it. Radagast the brown says, whenever it or another creature enters the battlefield, you look at the top X cards of your library, where X is that creature's mana value. And some of the creature's mana values are preposterous in this deck. You may reveal a creature card that doesn't share a creature type with a creature you control from among those cards and put it in your hand. And then you will cast that one. And maybe you'll have a Kodama in play that causes one to allow you to cast the other. And then even if I do counterspell your thing, it was a trick because the thing you actually wanted to resolve was the thing that you're going to just put into play through Kodama's ETB or Kodama's triggered ability. And even if it's not Kodama's triggered ability, it could be, well, okay, you get the idea, right? Like, triggered abilities are kind of the name of the game, which makes Starfield Vocalist crazy in the deck. And a lot of times you're not going to, most of the time I think players that play this card are warping it into play. And I think probably a lot of the time when you play this deck, you're going to have this thing literally in play. Either you're going to cheat it into play somehow, and there's so many ways to cheat it into play. Or you're going to actually just have the mana to easily hard cast it, so where it's going to stay on the battlefield. And that means all of your ETBs, well, it's not even all your ETBs. It's every time anything you do causes, no, every time you, I'm going to read the card. If a permanent entering the battlefield causes a triggered ability of a permanent you control to trigger, that ability triggers an additional time. There you go. So yeah, all of these guys that have not ETBs, but that have an ability that triggers when something ETBs get doubled, and in some cases not doubled, but tripled, because there's a phantasmal image copying the Starfield Vocalist, or quadrupled because there's those, but also there's a Phyrexian Metamorph that's come to the party. And sometimes these clones are super vitally important to the deck. Sometimes they're not. Sometimes you're just going to use the clone to clone, like any of the things, right? But like a Peregrine Drake. And that's going to allow you to untap 5 lands, but 3 of those lands have fucking wild growths on them. And now you've got enough mana to do the next several things that you wanted to do. Sorry, the deck is it defies explanation. You almost have to see it to believe it. or to understand it. Well, to believe it, because I believe it, but I still don't really understand it. I'm on here because I signed off on it. Remember that. This is a VisV and Egu thing. I mean, like I said, I had some say so in it. I made a couple adjustments to the deck just before I started recording. But even then, I ran those adjustments by Egu and Viz, not just because they're the progenitors, but because they're fucking monsters, and I fear for my life. If I don't know, if I ever thought that they were angered at me. I'm just kidding. We're not, I thought about going in this whole crazy. We're not doing that today. We did that last time. If you want to hear crazy Navanad, go nutty. Watch my last video. But if you want to just hear me go kind of nutty, well, that's where you're at right now. So Eternal Witness and Snap with wild growths. That's a thing, right? You can. Let's see, you have a land that is producing many manas. Maybe you've got a Utopia Sprawl and a Wild Growth on a land. This mana base is pretty good, too, for $3.88. And it really does get a big boost in the fact that it can play these Survivor encampment type things, and you always have a body to tap for them. But you've got a couple Utopia Sprawl type things on a land, and you cast a Snap on your Eternal Witness. The Snap untaps 2 lands, but actually gives you 4 mana, say, which is not at all hard to believe, or that'll happen. Then you tap those mana to cast your Eternal Witness, picking up the Snap. You recast the Snap, so on and so forth ad nauseum, right? And you just get infinite mana that way, which is better than ad nauseum because we've got Thrasios in the command zone. So if we happen into infinite mana, and most of the time when the deck produces infinite mana, it will be just you happening into infinite mana. Then yeah, you will just draw the deck and win. But it won't be because you did a very blatant win attempt. That's the key. That's like what really sharpens the edge of this sword, really. It's terribly hard to interact with. Like I think I've said that enough, but it's hard to exaggerate how hard it is to know how to it's hard to exaggerate how difficult it is to stop this deck. And I think I've now just reached the point where you're just going to have to look at the cards and read them. A proper deck tech would just be me explaining literally every card one by one. And I don't think that you came here for that today. But yeah, I guess you put a sticker goblin into play, and if you've got a good sticker goblin, if you kind of rolled good, you got a high roll sticker goblin, then maybe you can use Hullbreaker Horror to bounce a clone that clones the sticker goblin, or you can bounce the sticker goblin and then find another way to generate the mana that you need, the blue mana that you need to. No, that just goes infinite. Yeah, so you can go infinite mana with sticker goblin, Hullbreaker Horror, and remember, combos like that are easier because you've got Rograkh, who only costs 0 mana, and I was going to say only costs -1 mana, but not always. But often, like very often, when you bounce your Rograkh and you recast it, you'll have some way to make that generate value for you. Well, like Relic of Legends. Maybe a Relic of Legends has been... Yeah, Relic of Legends, that's a good example. Yeah, and who knows what else it's going to trigger when it comes into play. Maybe it triggers the Radagast, right? That's the deck. I guess I don't have much else to say about this one. And maybe we should do gold fishing, but it's like, man, I know you guys probably want to see gold fishing, but I absolutely do not know how to play this deck. I just really honestly don't. Would I keep this hand? I don't even know. I think I probably would. I don't know if I'm supposed to. Yeah, I don't think I'm going to be able to do it any justice. So what I think you're going to need to do is come into the Discord, link in the description, and get into the untap games with us. Just kind of taking a peek at some hands, but I don't have much to say about them. Yeah, next time I do somebody else's deck, maybe I'll get them on the I'll get them involved with the deck tech. He was busy. He was doing something with a friend. He got tired from kicking our asses all over untap, and he had to take a nap. Yeah, that's the deck, guys. I don't know what else to say about it. So link in the description. I've got the deck list in the description. I've got your invitation to our little slice of heaven, our world. Yeah, like make a bunch of mana, do a bunch of hard to interact with things, cut all of your interaction, not your problem. The other players at the table will deal with it. All you're focused on is just spamming mana and card draw and big monsters and casting a Genesis Ultimatum that wins the game. Right? Till next time, guys. Come into the Discord, jam games with us on Untap, word to your mothers, and Eastside until I die. Namaste, homies. Namaste.